The first part of today's lesson is going to cover a few more symbols and stuff that we have to know how to write in geometry. We're going to start with segment, and that's just a line with two endpoints. It would look something like this, and its name would be pronounced segment AW, or you could pronounce it WA, order doesn't matter. And instead of writing that all the time, we're going to draw these little symbols. So you literally just draw like a line with two letters that are the endpoints, and that's how you write segment. Then you have ray, which is basically half line and half ray. It'll look something like that. And this is pronounced ray RZ. If you say ray ZR, that would be incorrect. So order does matter. Whatever the endpoint is has to be pronounced first. So your symbol for that, again, we're not going to write this all the time. You can just draw a little miniature ray, and you have to be really careful. Wherever the endpoint is, that's where R has to go for this problem. If you want to switch the way your arrow points, that's fine, but you also have to switch your letters. So again, R has to be under the side with no arrow. Then we have opposite rays. Basically, opposite rays are two rays put together to make a line. So basically, if you were to split this guy in half, it would split into rays BE and ray BQ. So you have BE going this way and BQ going this way. There is no symbol for opposite. You just write the word opposite. You guys should know what parallel lines are. They're lines that never touch, of course, but they also need to run in the same direction. So for example, lines M and N would be parallel. We are going to use this symbol for parallel because we're not going to write the word out all the time. So you just want to get comfortable seeing that because you'll see it a lot. Next word would be skew, and this one you probably have not heard of. They're lines that they don't intersect, but they're not parallel. The best way to show you is with a three-dimensional box. So you can see that these lines definitely won't physically touch each other, but they're also not parallel. So you would just say that line RT is skewed to line JM. If you want, you can, instead of writing the word line, you can draw a mini line and write RT under it. Unfortunately, there's no symbol for skew, so you just have to write skew. And then you could abbreviate JM if you'd like to. So the last pair of objects would be parallel planes. And obviously they're planes that don't touch. Again, it's easier to show you with a 3D box. So like the top and the bottom, for example, are parallel planes. There is no symbol for parallel planes, but you can certainly write ORN is parallel to TJM. So in the example, you're supposed to name all the segments and rays in the figure at the right. So you can go ahead and pause the video and then unpause and see if you got the same answers that I got. So there are a total of 4 segments. You have E to F, E to H, F to G, or F to H. In terms of rays, here's where you gotta be careful. So there's one ray that starts at point E and goes on forever. It's this ray. Now there's 2 ways to name it. You can name it EF or you can name it EH. It doesn't matter which letter F or H you use as long as it's on that side of point E. You could also have had FG, because there is a ray that starts at F and goes on towards G forever. You could have had FE, so right here, this is a ray that's in the picture. You could have had H going on forever, and there's, again, 2 ways to name that. You can call it HF or HE. They're both the same name, so that's why I had these slashes here, because these are the same ray. They're not different. So now you're going to take a minute and you should see 3 pairs of parallel planes, and I would like you to go ahead and name those planes. So you should have got the top and the bottom, which I just used 3 letters to name the left and the right sides and the front and the back sides. Usually that's pretty easy. You don't have to write the word plane if you don't want to. I'll know what you're talking about if you don't. I just want to make sure we can tell the difference between parallel and skew. So if you look at segment AE, this segment right here, all the parallel segments would be, it looks like BH, CG, and BF. In terms of skew to AE, so we want to look at lines that aren't parallel, but they're definitely not going to touch it. So there's two of them, there's a third, and there's a fourth. So go ahead through B, C, and D, and just go ahead and complete those, and then you can check your answers when you're done. All right, hopefully your answers match up with mine. If you can't read that says BC, then you're basically doing the same thing again, only using DC. Parallel planes in the classroom could be the ceiling and the floor, for example. Parallel lines could be like the top border of the chalkboard, and the bottom could be the other parallel line. So there's an example. Skew lines could be, if you think of a textbook. All right, textbook is 3D. You could say the left edge on the top with the front edge on the bottom. Those would be skew lines. So just kind of give you some visualization. Really quick, we're going to match the words to the correct picture. So segment would definitely have to be the dumbbell, the very bottom. The ray would be the ray of sunlight. The opposite rays would be the hands on a clock. Skew lines would be the intersection of two roads, for example. Parallel planes could be the top and the bottom of the sandwich, and parallel lines would be the rows in the field.